Hi friends, welcome to our channel Knowledge Factory UPSC. Today in this lecture we are going to discuss the second chapter of NCERT class 7 and the name of chapter is Inside Our Earth. Before going to the chapter, those who does not subscribe to my channel, subscribe now and like the video right now. Okay, so let's look into the chapter. As the title of chapter suggests, this chapter mainly deals with the components inside our earth and which are the main parts inside our earth, what are its significance, and some of the important concepts which are related to the components inside our earth. Okay, so let's look into the chapter. The Earth, our homeland, is a dynamic planet and it have constantly undergoing changes inside and outside. Okay, this is all we have. We know that Earth is a dynamic planet because it is the only planet where the life exists. So it's a dynamic planet and it undergoes changes inside and outside the Earth. Okay, so let's look here. There's a blue box which is on the right side. Let's look into that. The deepest mine in the world is in South Africa and it is about 4 kilometers deep. Okay, so the deepest mine in the world is South Africa and it is about 4 kilometers deep inside the earth, and it is for the oil explorations. They have dug about 6 kilometers deep. Okay, so to reach to the center of the earth, which is not possible, and you have to dig the whole of 6,000 kilometers deep into the ocean floor. So it is not possible to reach at the interior of the earth for digging about 6,000 kilometers into the earth, which is an impossible task. Okay, so the deepest mine in the world is South Africa, and the researchers and engineers have dug about 6 kilometers deep into the earth for oil exploration. So it is not possible to reach at the interior of the earth to travel about 6,000 kilometers to the ocean floor. Okay, so let's look into detail of this chapter. Here is a picture. So it's a beautiful picture which shows the interior of earth. So we have to keep this picture in our mind and it will be very useful for your exams. Okay, here we can find there is an outermost layer which is known as crust, and there is lithosphere, and below the crust there is mantle, and there is core mantle boundary which is a boundary between core and mantle, and there is outer core and there is inner core. Okay, so let's look into the chapter. Just like an onion, the earth is made up of several concrete concentric layers with one inside another, and the uppermost layer of the earth is known as crust, and it is the thinnest of all layers, and it is about 35 kilometers on the continental masses and 5 kilometers on the ocean floor. So the uppermost layer of the earth's surface is called as crust, and it is about 35 kilometers towards the continental masses and 5 kilometers on the ocean floor. And the main mineral constituent of the continental masses are silica and alumina. Okay, so the main mineral constituent of the continental masses are silica and alumina, and it is called as Cl. That means Si for silica and Al for alumina. The oceanic crust mainly consists of silica and magnesium, and therefore it is called as Sima. Okay, so the continental masses is made up of silica and alumina, so it is known as Cl, and the ocean floor, which is mainly made up of silica and magnesium, so it is known as Sima. Okay, so just beneath the crust there is mantle, and which extends up to the depth of 2,900 kilometers just below the crust. Okay, so just below the crust about 2,900 kilometers there is crust. Okay, so let's look into this chapter and find more details. So we can find that there is crust and below there is core. Okay, below there is mantle. Okay, so here we can find there is a picture of the continental crust and there is oceanic crust also. The continental crust means the lithospheric portion which is composed of several mountains, plains, plateaus, etc., and the oceanic crust mainly composed the layer that is below the ocean. Okay, so let's look into next topic. and the innermost layer of the core with the radius about 3500 km is mainly made up of nickel and iron, and it is known as knife. Okay, so the innermost layer is known as core, which has the radius about 3500 kilometers only, and it is made up of nickel and iron, and it is known as knife. Okay, Ni for nickel and Fe for ferrous, that means iron. Okay, the central core has very high pressure and temperature, as we know all these details, and in the left side there is a box, and which we have to focus on that. And the crust forms only 1% of the volume of the earth, and the 84% consists of mantle, and 15% consists of core, and the radius of the earth is 6371 kilometer. Okay, so the crust only of 1%, and 84% there is mantle, 55 on the 15% there is core, and the radius of the earth is of 6371 kilometer. Okay, so let's look into some origin of words. Okay, so the word igneous, these are some kinds of rocks which is aware of igneous rocks, sedimentary rock, metamorphic rock. Okay, so we have igneous rock, and the Latin of the word ignis means fire, and the sedimentary, and the Latin word sedimentum, which means to settle down, and the word metamorphic, which is of the Greek word of metamos, which means from change of form. Okay, so it is also very important to know the origin of word. Let's look into the next topic of rock and minerals. Earth crust is mainly made up of various type of rocks. Any natural masses of mineral matter that make up the earth crust is called as a rock. So what is called as a rock? Any natural mass of mineral matter that make up earth crust. So the earth crust is mainly made up of several mineral matter, and they are known as a rock. Rock can be of different color, size, texture, etc. So the rock can be of different color, size, texture, etc. There are three major type of rocks. They are igneous rocks, sedimentary rock, and metamorphic rock. So there are different type of rocks. Which are they? They are igneous rock, sedimentary, and metamorphic. The root word of these three rocks we have already discussed before, that their igneous means fire, sedimentum means to settle down, metamorph, which means change of form. Okay, when the molten magma cools, so let's look how these rocks are formed. Okay, when the molten magma cools, it becomes solid, and the rock thus formed is called as igneous rocks. Okay, so what is igneous rock? The molten magma which cools and solidifies to become the rock, which were known as igneous rock. And they are also called as primary rock, and there are two type of primary rock. They are intrusive rock and extrusive rock. Okay, so the igneous rocks, they are called as primary rock, and there are two type of igneous rocks. They are known as intrusive rock and extrusive rock. When the molten magma, that means when the molten lava comes out of the earth's surface, it rapidly cools down and thus becomes solid, and the rock form in such a way on the crust is known as extrusive rock. Okay, so when the molten lava comes out of the earth's surface, it rapidly cools down and becomes solid, and the rock formed in such a way on the crust, that means above the crust, is known as extrusive rock. Okay, extrusive igneous rocks. They have a very fine grained structure. For example, basalt. So the basalt is an example of igneous rock. Okay, the Deccan Plateau is made up of basalt rock. So the Deccan Plateau is made up of basalt rock. So we can find that Deccan Plateau is mainly made up of extrusive igneous rock, which is formed by the deposition or the cool down of lava. Okay, sometimes the molten magma cools down deep inside the earth crust itself. Okay, so the solid rock thus formed inside the earth crust is known as intrusive igneous rocks. Since they cool down slowly and they form the large grains, they are soft grains, but the particles which were inside the crust, that means cool down inside the crust, is of large grains, and they are large grains, and they settle down, and the solid rock so formed is known as igneous rocks, and the main example of such a rock is granite. Okay, the grinding stone used to prepare paste, powder of various spices, and grains are made up of this granite. Okay, so it is very useful for our cosmetics also, and the granite, we know that we are used for building our houses, flooring, etc. So the granite is an igneous rock which is formed by the cool down of lava or the magma. Okay, so here is a small box of glossary. Let's look into that. What is fossil? The remains of dead plants and animals trapped in the layer of the rock are called as fossil. So the remains of dead plants and animals which were trapped in the layer of rock are called as fossil. Okay, when these types, that means when these type of sedimentary rocks or these igneous rock or metamorphic rocks are digged out, we will of course we will find some fossils which were of animals, trees, and other species, which were even we have found the fossils of dinosaurs also. Okay, so the fossil plays an important role in developing the history or finding the history. Okay, so let's look into the next rock. The rock roll down, crack, hit each other, are broken into the small fragments, and these small particles are called as sediments. So what are sediments? The rock roll down, crack, hit each other, and they are broken down into small fragments, and these smaller particles are called as sediments. These sediments are transported and deposited by the wind, water, etc., and they lose the sediments are compressed and hardened to form a layer of rock, and these type of rock are called as sedimentary rock. So what are sedimentary rock? These small sediments, some sediments are deposited, and some where undergoes some type of pressure and heat, and they sediment together and formed the hardened layer of rocks, and these type of rock are sedimentary rock. For example, sandstone is made up of grains of sand, and these rock are also contain the fossils of plants, animals, and microorganisms lived on them. Igneous and sedimentary rocks can change into metamorphic rock. So igneous rocks and sedimentary rocks are here turning towards the metamorphic rock under the great heat and pressure. Okay, so here is a picture to find that the sedimentary rock which were turned into a metamorphic rock. Okay, so it's also very important. So first of all, we have discussed what is igneous rock. Igneous rock are the rocks which were formed by what? Molten magma. So what are the sedimentary rock? Sedimentary rocks are formed by the deposition of sediments, means the small cracked rock and some particles which were under the compressed and hardened to form the layers of rock, and they are called as sedimentary rock. And what are metamorphic rock? These igneous and sedimentary rocks can change into metamorphic rock under great heat and pressure. For example, clay changes into the state of limestone into marble. So what are the example of this type of metamorphic rock? The clay changes into slate and limestone into marble. Okay, so first of all, the clay is changing into slate, then it is changed into limestone, then it into marble. Okay, rocks, what are the useful of rocks? Let's look into that. Rocks are very useful to us. The hard rocks are used for making the roads, houses, buildings. Okay, so we can find the stones in many games, and here we can find that there are two important monuments which shows the identity of India itself. That is, one is Red Fort, and which is made up of red sandstone, and the Taj Mahal, which is a beautiful monument, and it is created by Akbar and Shah Jahan. So the Taj Mahal is built by Shah Jahan, and it is made up of white marble. Okay, so Red Fort and the Taj Mahal are mainly built using these type of rocks and minerals. Okay, We will be surprised to know that one type of rock changes into another type of rock under certain conditions in a cyclic manner, and this process of transformation of the rock from one to another is known as a rock cycle. So what is a rock cycle? One type of rock changes into another type of rock due to some kind of conditions, and this is known as rock cycle. Okay. When the molten magma, we have already discussed that when the molten magma solidifies to become igneous rock, and these igneous rocks are broken down into small particles, are transported and deposited to form sedimentary rock, and these sedimentary rocks subjected under heat and high pressure, and they changes into metamorphic rock, and these metamorphic rocks which still undergo heat and pressure and melt down to form molten magma, and these molten magma again cool down and solidifies to form igneous rock. Okay, so it is a beautiful cycle which represent the rock cycle, which shows that how these rocks are changes, and it undergoes a cyclic change. Okay, here we can find magma, and this volcanic magma came out and formed igneous rock, and these igneous rock are broken down and form sediments, and these sediments undergoes hardened pressure and temperature to form sedimentary rock, and these sedimentary rocks are undergoes to the severe heat and pressure to form metamorphic rock. These metamorphic rocks which goes inside the earth again heated, and they again changes into magma. Okay, again this magma came out of the earth to form igneous rock. Such this cycle is continuing, and it is a beautiful cycle which represent how these minerals and rocks are changes from one state to another state. We are moving towards the end of this chapter. The rocks are made up of different minerals, and the minerals are naturally occurring substances which have certain physical properties and the definite chemical composition. Okay, so the rocks are made up of different type of minerals which occur in the substance. That means these minerals are composed of definite chemical compositions, and the minerals are very important to humankind, and some are used as fuels. That means some type of minerals were used as fuel, for example coal, natural gas, petroleum, and they are also used in industries, iron, aluminium, gold, uranium, etc. And there are also minerals which are used as medicines and in fertilizers also. So the minerals are very much useful for humankind because they are used as fuels, they are used in industries, they are used as instruments such as gold or aluminium, and they are used in power plants such as uranium, and some are used in even medicines and some in fertilizers. Okay, so we have discussed in this chapter, so the chapter has ended, and we have discussed in chapter that how these minerals occurs, and how the minerals changes from one state to another. That means how one state of rock to another state of rock. We have discussed the parts of the earth and the divisions of the earth. Okay, this is a small chapter, but don't forget this chapter, because the continuation of this chapter we can find in our higher classes, even in your 8th standard and your 9th standard. So keep these concepts clear in your mind, and I hope you understand this class. If you like this, like the video, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends. Thank you.